friends, today I'm filming a special video for Jin's birthday and talk about 7 books that represent each BTS member. So as this video goes live, it is midnight, which means it is Jin's birthday, and a couple of people within the, kind of crossover of BookTube and ARMY have decided to all do these videos together where we talk about, if your BTS bias was a book. And we all it was very open. We all just kind of choose what books we think kind of represent each BTS member. We're gonna do it in Bangtan order, and I'm kind of nervous. I think it's gonna just be really, really interesting, and I think it's just gonna be so fascinating to see what people come up with. But also I'm just kind of interested to see if I can actually tell you properly about why I choose the books for each of the members and if you agree with me or not. But I am super excited to talk about it, and obviously happy birthday to Jin. I'm so excited to do a special video on his special day. And yeah, this is obviously BTS, but it is also bookish, so I hope that y'all enjoy it. Even if you're not into BTS, I think it is definitely very fun and goes into depth on a lot of these books. Obviously, we're starting with the leader, with Namjoon. Now, I actually had a harder time than I thought with Namjoon, and I'm gonna tell you honestly, I'm not 100% happy with my choice, but one book that kind of came to mind for me immediately and that I just ended up sticking with is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. Now, this is one of those books that's a science fiction book because it has these elements of potentially alien themed things in the world, but at the end of the day it is so much about just being human and the human experience, and it is especially about being human in today's times. It deals a lot with social media, and it deals a lot with fame and the responsibility and the power that fame brings you, and how you might not necessarily want it, but you just have that power and you have that responsibility, and it is yours to do something good with that. That is what truly ended up kind of confirming for me that I wanted to choose this book for Namjoon. This is definitely a character-driven book, and the main character is very different from Namjoon, but then they definitely have similarities. It is definitely a book that's about the main character also just learning to make mistakes in the first place, but then also learning from those mistakes. And I just thought that there were many little aspects that I could really connect to Namjoon, but then it's also just this general theme of the book that I thought just really, really fit him. And again, especially looking at how much this book talks about social media, how much social media influences us today, and how much it can have a negative impact on us, but then also how much power certain people have to use that to have a positive impact on you, if that makes sense. And I think that's just so, that's so BTS in general. Obviously, just the whole love yourself, message out there, and it wouldn't be the same without social media. And so something in my gut that I can't even really put into words just made this book feel right for me when it comes to Namjoon, and I hope that people kind of get where I'm coming from with it. And then we obviously have the birthday boy, Jin. And for Jin, I ended up going with the graphic novel Nimona by Noelle Stevenson, because Nimona, I knew I wanted something funny for Jin. I knew. I was like, this has to be something that genuinely just made me laugh, which is hard to find. Books don't make me laugh a lot. And then in general, I feel funny books are not usually the type of books that I love. But Nimona felt very right because, again, it is funny. It has a really quirky art style, which definitely also fits Jin. But then there's so much more to this book. I feel when you look at it, you're just kind of oh, this is a fun, quirky story. And you're reading the first couple pages and it's just a lot of fun. But then there is so much depth to this graphic novel. There is so much in there that you really can't see when you first look at it and when you first start reading it. And I think that definitely fits Jin as well. He's obviously this happy, funny, quirky personality, but we know there's so much more to it, and that is Nimona for me as well. And there's definitely also themes in the graphic novel about just like, you know, being human and making mistakes, which for me is just something that I can relate to all of the members, definitely. For all of the books, I was really happy when I found a book that had a theme of found family in there. But for Jin especially, I really wanted it in there because like it's so apparent, you know, obviously him being the oldest member, how much he cares for everybody else. And so I'm really happy that that is something that also is a big theme in Nimona, the found family aspect, and especially this relationship between kind of the main character and her mentor, more or less. It's definitely like a girl and her big brother, kind of that dynamic. And so I just thought, like, once I had kind of like realized, oh, I like this because it's funny, I just realized how many points really fit when it comes to Nimona and Jin. So that's my pick for him. Then we have Yongi, and for Yongi I decided to go with A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. I'm so glad I got to put a Victoria Schwab book on this list. It makes me so happy. And I think that you could find many of her books and relate them to him. I think he just very much fits that. I don't know, is it the Slytherin energy? I'm not sure. But A Gathering of Shadows for me, well, first of all, for Yongi, I knew that I wanted a book that's also very character driven, and I didn't want like a fast-paced, plot-driven book, like at all. Like I definitely knew that. And obviously A Gathering of Shadows towards the end gets fast-paced and more about the plot. But at the end of the day, most of the book, a big chunk of this book is character driven, and it's also slow. The whole world, the whole Shades of Magic world is one of the most unique worlds, and I think that Yongi is one of the like most unique and authentic K-pop idols, just looking at the industry as a whole. And like, you know, obviously BTS as a whole is so authentic, and obviously they are having such an impact on the industry because they are so unique and because they are so authentic. But like looking at just idols, I think that Yongi is just the one who stands out the most as someone who is completely not letting himself fit into the mold of what a K-pop idol is supposed to be. And that is definitely for me kind of represented in just the unique world building. What really drove this book as a choice home for me at the end of the day is Lila Bart's character development. In A Gathering of Shadows, Lila works so hard on her magical abilities. She works so hard on overcoming her past, or just leaving her past behind, and just kind of being in the here and now and working on what is relevant right now and working towards that so hard, to the point where she sometimes forgets herself and ends up, you know, kind of having like almost like unhealthy behaviors where she pushes herself too much. And like, if that's not Yongi, then I don't fucking know. Lila constantly, even though she already obviously brings in so much like talent and natural ability for the magic, she constantly thrives to be better and to do better and to work harder and to work more. And then on top of all of that, as if that wasn't enough to be like, yup, that's Yongi, it is also a journey of her really understanding herself. It is a journey of her being more emotional and becoming more vulnerable. And that is definitely something that we have seen Yongi go through as well. And just like really him living his best life and just being out there and being happy. And A Gathering of Shadows is this really big character development of this character finding the path towards her happiness as well, and towards being able to genuinely be happy with people that she loves and the passion that she has for the things that she loves. And I just love this so much, and I just couldn't believe it when I was like trying to think about it. It just makes me so happy. Again, I'm just so glad I was able to put a Victoria Schwab book on here, and I'm just really loving the similarities between these two. I would not have thought of it like looking at it from the outside, but like really digging into it, I was like, holy shit, it's like right there. Then we have Hobie. Now, I'm gonna be honest, Hobie is the one that I struggled with the most, without question. And I'm actually not 100% happy with my choice, but that is only because I have ended up going with something that is very subjective. It is very subjective. It is not so much the book and its themes representing Hobie. It is more so what the book means to me representing Hobie. So I understand that it is very subjective, but this is a book that came into my mind relatively early on, and I couldn't really place it. I didn't really understand why this would be a book that I would connect to Hobie. And then I tried finding something. I wanted something happy. I wanted something that made me smile, that just made me laugh, that had a lot of like positive energy, a lot of happiness, a book that you would read that just put you in a good mood. But I had a hard time finding it. I had a hard time finding one that I really truly felt. Again, like, I'm just not the type of person who like loves super happy books. And none of the happy books felt right in my heart. So I ended up just going with the one that my mind just told me in the beginning, even though, again, it is a very subjective choice. And that is Graceling by Christine Cashore. And for me, I think Graceling was the one that came to mind because the way that Graceling makes me feel is how Hobie makes me feel. The warmth, the comfort, the happiness, the feeling of like coming home when I reread Graceling, that is so much of what Hobie gives me. Hobie is the sunshine, but it's not just his optimism and his intense positive energy. It's this warmth. It's like feeling comfortable. And that is what Graceling makes me feel as well. And that's why at the end of the day, even though I'm like, it's not really something where I'm like, this represents this member, so like y'all should read this book, it just felt right in my heart to choose that one. There's such a strong connection just in how I feel about this book and how I feel about this person. And so I just could not do it. And then thinking about it, I definitely found themes in the book that do remind me of Hobie as well. I think just the main character being so very strong and always being strong, especially when other people need her. Like really at the end of the day, Graceling is very much a survival story, and it is just like putting everything out there to like make sure that the people you love are protected and happy. And I definitely think that Hobie is that type of person, and I definitely think that that is very much just him, just like, you know, giving so much energy to other people and just having this positive energy. It's not because he's not ever sad or angry or has negative feelings. That's what I think anyway. Like, I very much relate to Hobie, so I think I project a lot onto him. But I just think that Hobie just always has this really positive exterior, because seeing how much that positive exterior kind of influences other people and makes them happy, then makes him happy as well. And I think that, you know, while Graceling the book as a whole is not maybe a book that's like, you know, so like happy and sunshiny, I definitely think that the idea behind Hobie and his intentions, I guess, and the main character's intentions in this story are very, very similar. And I also think that in general, like, Katza is also just this very warm-hearted, loving person, and again, just like does everything to protect the people that she loves. And I just think that at the end of the day also very much fits Hobie. But I will definitely say that there are a lot of really, really tough and hard topics in Graceling, and it is definitely not like a fluffy read or anything like that. But at the end of the day, for me, again, just in my gut, it felt right. It felt like the right choice. Also, Katza's fucking kick-ass, just as Hobie is. And also, Katza can be fucking intimidating, as Hobie can be as well. So at the end of the day, there's definitely some similarities that are less subjective as well. Then we have Jimin. For Jimin, I choose The Queen's Rising by Rebecca Ross. For Jimin, I also knew that I definitely wanted a book where one of the main themes of it was found family. I think that was something that, like, especially for the Maknae line, I was like, okay, I need a book that has found family. And for Jimin especially, because Jimin is just so caring and just always so there for all the members. And The Queen's Rising is honestly one of the best books about found family. Like, genuinely, if you ask me, like, tell me your favorite book with like the found family trope, I think I would probably tell you about The Queen's Rising, because I just think that found family trope is so fucking good. So that was definitely one point for me where I was like, that's Jimin. But then it's also a book that's definitely very character driven, and it is about really strong character development where the main character really learns who she is and what she wants in life, and really just like accepting herself with all her faults and mistakes and her sometimes lack of abilities, but also realizing how many things she does excel at, and just like seeing her just as a whole, and seeing her again with all like the good things and all the bad things. And the book is also, you know, it has these like different talents, and the main character goes through all these talents trying to just find what she's best at, and just really like struggling to find her path because she feels like she can't succeed at any of these things. But at the end of the day, she like realizes, you know, that like she was really just like putting too much on herself, and just really realizing, you know, like you're doing good and you are succeeding and you are, you know, putting in work, and it does pay off eventually. And I just love that for Jimin, love that character development for him, love that character development in this book. Then we have Taeyang, which was definitely not easy for me either, because how do I put all my feelings and all the things that I love about Tae, like how do I find all of these things in one book? But then eventually I found something that worked so very well, and that is The Lost Coast by Amy Rose Capetta. It is a very atmospheric book. Like, The Lost Coast is genuinely one of the most atmospheric, most unique books that I have ever read. It is also a book that's very much about being unapologetically you. And I also love, like, this book has such lush and beautiful writing. It is really just such a wonderful, beautiful experience to read this book. And it's just like there's so many like metaphors, and it's just such intense writing. But there's also just so much more to this book. There are so many messages in there. There's just so much going on in this book, which really fits Tae as well. Like, this book really has so much more depth than you might see at the first kind of glance. This definitely has an aspect of like found family or like very intense friendship dynamics as well, which again, I kind of wanted to have that for the whole MacLeod line. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think what really just drove this home for me is especially the atmosphere, and just like how atmospheric it is. Like, the atmosphere is so intense and so like you can really feel it. I think that fits very well to this intense aura that Taeyang has. And then again, just also it's a very queer book, and it is about like being unapologetically queer, but like at the end of the day, what it means to be unapologetically queer is just to be unapologetically you. And like, I think that Tae is so unapologetically him, and like learn so much more every day to be unapologetically him and to just put that out there into the world. And so I just really love that choice, because I think it had so many different little aspects that I really love about Tae that this book just really kind of represent. And then finally we have our maknae, and for Jungkook I decided to go with The Wicked King by Holly Black. I choose this because I was like, JK's Jude, right? I had this gut feeling. I was like, you know what? I think I would really like Wicked King for JK. And then when I kind of looked into how I felt that way, I was like, it's because JK is Jude. Like, The Wicked King is so character driven, and it is about Jude and her like strong and fierce moments, but also her moments of weakness, and how she is not afraid to show that, how brave she is. And with being so brave, she also becomes like not scared to just admit when she is feeling weak and when she is scared or when she is just overwhelmed with things. And I just think that's very JK. Like, he's so driven. He's so very driven, and he works so hard, and he's definitely, you know, like all of them, he puts too much pressure on himself, but he's also never afraid to show us just his emotional moments, and he's never afraid to like just show us his weak moments, and just like show us the stuff that he's going through, and that he is struggling with things. And I just love that as well. And I love that he's so open about that, and that he shares emotional moments with us as well. But then when I kind of like thought more about it, what ended up just really confirming this choice for me is that Jude is so sure she belongs in Fairy. She works so hard to be part of Fairy. She works so hard to be accepted in Fairy. She knows this is her world, and it might be fucking cruel sometimes, and it might just fucking put so much pressure on you sometimes to just like be a certain way, and just like this world like constantly makes her think that she like doesn't fit in, but she gives no fucks. She is like, this is my world, this is where I belong, and I'm ready to fight to be accepted in this world. Not to say that the K-pop industry is as cruel as Fairy, but like it kind of is like that. Just how much pressure the industry puts on you to be a certain way, and how hard it is to survive in this industry, just as it is super hard to survive in Fairy. But like, JK knows he belongs on stage. He knows his place is on stage. His place is making music and putting that out there to people. And he wouldn't give that up, however shitty this whole industry might be sometimes. And then at the same time, and we especially see this right now, just as Jude is kind of also influencing Fairy and definitely like changing Fairy. And I just think that JK definitely has that same energy. JK very much is just like, I no longer have to completely, fit into this industry. I can break out of this. Like, I have the power to break out of this. I have the power to potentially change something about this. I no longer need to confine to those rules. I actually maybe even have the chance to change something within this industry and to change something about how this world works. And I think that is also very Jude. I think that is very Fairy. And that's why eventually the Wicked King for me is the perfect choice. Honestly, looking at it, I think that maybe even this dynamic, the, Wicked King and Jungkook, might be my favorite out of all the books that I ended up choosing, because it just really ended up being like, oh my god, you know what? That's even more perfect than I initially thought. And again, it came from a complete gut reaction, and the more I looked into it, the more I absolutely loved it. So yeah, these are my 7 books that I choose for the 7 BTS members. Definitely let me know if you agree, disagree, what you think about these, if the things that I explained to you made sense. I really hope they did. And I would also love to know if maybe you're like, you know what you said about this book actually reminds me more of this member. Or maybe one of the things that I explained reminded you of another book. Like, give me recommendations based on what I said about the members and the books that I choose as well. Like, I would absolutely love that. Yeah, I just really hope that you enjoyed this and that you kind of understood where I was coming from. Obviously, I will leave links to everybody else who is participating in this in the description down below. Please check out everybody's videos. We all put so much into this and really just like, worked hard to make this a good list. And yeah, that's it from me. I, again, hope you enjoyed this, even if you are not into BTS. Or I guess I'm almost like, I hope, especially if you're into BTS, you like this and again, understood where I was coming from. And yeah, I'm making the videos at least once a week. So click subscribe to never miss anything and hit the little bell so you get notified as well. And thank you so much for watching. I guess I'll see you soon. Bye!